Hello, Grace Harbor family. I'm Cathy. I am going to be studying the book of Habakkuk with you today. First and foremost, when I open my Bible to the book of Habakkuk, I have a little note, and it says to stop and to pray a prayer for protection over my mind and my heart before I read the book. So pause this video and say a little prayer, and then we'll get started. One of the things I want you to pay attention to when we read this book and we start studying it, all of the whats and the whys that Habakkuk has for God. Pay attention to those, and we'll talk about them at the end. So in the book of Habakkuk, Habakkuk is talking to God. There's lots of corruption taking place. They're in the land of Judah. There's a lot of violence, and God has made promises to the people, and Habakkuk is getting very frustrated that God is not following through with his promises. And in chapter 1, Habakkuk cries out to the Lord, God, you are not hearing me. You said you would save us. You're not saving us. The laws are being ignored. The authority is being ignored. God, why are you forsaking us? And God responds to Habakkuk and he says, you want me to do something? Okay, I'll do something. And so he does. Well, unfortunately, things are a little bit worse, and Habakkuk is questioning God, why would you do this? Why would you make it worse? I asked you to do something. God's like, well, I did. And Habakkuk is not amused whatsoever. And he said, God, why would you do this? And in the midst of why, Habakkuk is questioning God's motives and his actions. Remember this. As we get into chapter 2 of Habakkuk, Habakkuk is still waiting for a response from God, a response that he is wanting to hear. And God says to Habakkuk, Habakkuk, I need you to write down the things that I tell you. The first thing he tells Habakkuk is the righteous will live by faith. Habakkuk, go write that down. And then he continues, and God says, Habakkuk, you are going to have to trust me. All of these questions you have for me, trust me. Go write that down. And I can imagine Habakkuk. I'm supposed to live by faith. I am supposed to trust you. I don't understand what's going on. I don't understand. Why would you say these things to me? Why aren't you following through with your promises? Why? Again, there's those questions. In chapter 3, Habakkuk is still not receiving the answers that he wants from God. He starts to recognize himself in a different way. Everything becomes a negative outlook. His body image changes in his view. The land around him changes. The environment, even the cattle are changing. And everything that he views with his own eyes has a negative outlook. This is spiritual warfare on Habakkuk. Despite all of these things that have happened, the Lord said, live by faith and trust me. So Habakkuk claims, beginning in verse 18, I will rejoice in the Lord of my salvation. The Lord is my strength. He makes my feet like the deer's. He makes me tread on high places. How incredible is that? For Habakkuk to go from questioning God to spiritual warfare and then to saying, I will rejoice in the God of my salvation. The Lord is my strength. Now to the whats and the whys. When we are asking God why, we are questioning his perfect plan for us. It's perfect. We don't need to question it. When we ask what, well, let's think about that. What can you do for me? What can you provide for me? Well, instead of making the what about us, what if we made it about God? About 20 years ago, I had a circumstance that I did not understand, very much like Habakkuk. And I asked God, why? Why is this happening? What did I do wrong? Why me? What could I have done differently? And the why was still about me. It was not about God. I was encouraged to read Habakkuk 3, and my way of thinking immediately changed. I did not need to question God's perfect plan, but instead, I could rejoice in the God of my salvation and trust that the Lord was my strength. And my question changed from why to what can I use from my circumstance to glorify God? No matter how bad the circumstance, that became my prayer. Thank you so much for studying Habakkuk with me.